Our session today begins with a conversation with Shruti Gandhi, General Partner of Array Ventures, and she calls herself the founding engineer. That's an interesting way for a venture capitalist to label herself. So I'm very curious to hear what you're doing, Shruti. Thank you for coming today and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just have to applaud that, doing something for 21 days is a lot of work, but doing something for 400 plus weeks is a tremendous effort. And this is amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. So tell us about Array Ventures. Tell us a bit about your background, and let's get acquainted.
Yeah, sure. So my quick background is I was an engineer for a decade, and then started a company for a couple of years, and then switched into venture about 8 or 9 years ago. And speaking of I was at True Ventures before I spun out Array about 4.5 years ago. So definitely, I could imagine talking to you. And then Array is founding engineer because Array was formed under the belief that engineers with great vision and ideas sometimes lack the ability to, engineer their way into fundraising and also customer development, go-to-market. So we decided to start a firm focused on enterprise investing in technical founders and engineers, and helping them think about go-to-market and building big businesses.
Yeah. You must know about the work of Engineering Capital. I'm friends with Ashmeet Sadana, who has some of those same principles, doing deep tech, funding engineers who are capable of doing really deep tech, but may not have quite the business savvy and the slickness of being able to sell and fundraise and all of that. And you take all that into account because they are capable, take in stride because they're capable of doing really deep technology work. So yes, your thesis is something that we understand very well. In fact, in our community, we work with a tremendous number of very good engineers and teach them how to market, how to sell, how to position, all the things that they've never done before, all the business school stuff. They've not gone to business. I didn't go to business school. I did my first company as a grad student at MIT. I was a PhD student, and at some point I took my master's and left to do my first company full time, and then I kept doing companies as founder CEO. I didn't have time to go to business school, and frankly, I don't know what I would have learned that I haven't learned by going to business school.
That's actually me. I was a founder who was technical, and a little nudge from someone who understood business and go to market better, like as you're talking about yourself teaching others, goes a long way for someone like me in my shoes in those days. So definitely exactly the reason why I started Array.
So tell us a bit about Array. How big is the fund? What stage are you focusing on? What kinds of companies are you looking to invest in?
Yeah, so we're now in our second fund. We have about 42 companies in our portfolio. We do about $500,000 to $1 million checks. And we've invested basically in companies that, technical founders who we help with go-to-market, but also focused on solving problems using data, machine learning, and in every industry, basically. We have companies in, health to fintech to productivity to, selling to CIOs and across the spectrum. So that's what we do, and we like being the first check in the company typically. So there's a lot of names to those rounds now, so I want to avoid using those names, but I want to just say like a first round that the companies are raising their money in,
so
and we'd like to be part of that.
Let me probe a little bit. So if I understood you correctly, you are doing enterprise-facing companies only, deep tech enterprise-facing company with a data, machine learning, AI focus, and across the business sectors that these enterprises are in. Now, and you want to be the first check. What do you need to see in a company for you to want to write that first check? What needs to be already there by way of proof point?
Very good question. And I think it's pretty ambiguous and blurry for a lot of people. So it's good to clarify. The thing we look for generally, and I just wrote a term sheet yesterday, so can talk about just exactly that example. The founders are seasoned, meaning they're operators. If they're not repeat founders, it's usually either one or the other. Our belief is that you can solve enterprise problems by being in an enterprise for a few years. So usually the founders are at a company, large or small. They have experience of about average of 4 to 7 years, if not more. And what they are experiencing is agitation. We call it the agitated workforce. What they are experiencing is this agitation around the pain points that they're facing in their work that they just can't get funding to solve for, or something of that effect, or they're just thinking about it enough outside of their job that they feel like someone should solve that problem. Oftentimes, they're now talking to their friends over chat or something, and they're saying, hey, do you think this problem exists for you? And their friends are saying, yeah, actually, if you build it, I'll buy it. And so that's where they get their conviction to go leave their jobs and their current from the current employers, and then spin out as a company. At that point, they have about 2 or 3 friends that have helped them build that conviction to leave their jobs, and that's about it. The build and buy decision is basically for down the road. So that's when a Ray comes in and says, let us help you figure out if these friends basically are going to be really buying down the road. So these are kind of verbal LOIs, if you will, for these founders. So we talk to those, but then we also have a community of really seasoned entrepreneurs and founders in our network as LPs and so forth that help with thinking through what we call the second wave of customers. So if 2 or 3 of your friends buy your product, do you think we as a Ray can help you think about the 4th, 5th, and 10th customer? And that is how we think about investing in a company. So it's a longer answer to your question, but the way we think about it is to summarize is to, have a few friends who might buy your product. And when I say buy, like not one seat for $5, more like a, 40, 50, 60K or more deal. And then us being able to think through and help you think through, or at least and connect you with the second wave of customer.
But you don't need them to actually finish the product.
No, I don't. We invested in one of our companies, productive.com. They barely had a deck.
Okay, so you want customer validation, pain point validation from their network. Then you want to take that concept and shop it around in your relevant network around that same idea. And then if all that checks out, you're okay with writing a check for the product to be built.
We believe the founders that are technical can build the product, especially if they've been at a company. We can pretty confidently, especially with my technical background and the conversations we have with the founders, verify that they can build something, right? But that is not enough to build a company. That may be enough to build a product or a feature. And so for us to think through if this can be a big company, these are some of the things we do. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you said you've invested in about 42 companies across 2 funds. Could you talk a bit about the fund sizes that you're operating with?
We started out, usually our funds, we don't really talk about our fund size, but our check sizes are $500 to $1 million per check.
Why don't you talk about the fund size?
Because they we have a network that is different. Usually there is a fund, and then we have a lot of added SPVs we do in the deal in addition to our core fund size. So our fund size can vary depending on how you look at it. But the fund itself, core fund itself can write like a $500,000 to $1 million check, which we do. But then we end up writing millions more after that, depending on our ability to kind of convince our LPs to do more checks.
Okay, whatever. We tend to not get pushbacks on the fund sizes because it's a standard model. And this SPV also comes up all the time, that people layer on SPVs on top of their regular funds. So I'm a little bit surprised that you have reservations about talking about fund size. Well, whatever. I guess the reason I'm asking you this question is for the follow-on question. So, as you know, the ecosystem for early stage financing has changed quite a lot. In the early days of the internet, we used to do seed financing, we used to do Series A, and there wasn't a lot of other variations in between. Now we have pre-seed, seed, post-seed, pre-Series A, small Series A, large Series A. There's this whole spectrum of things. And then the other parallel trend that we have been tracking very carefully, and the reason we're tracking this so carefully is because we are not only interested in companies that are going to become unicorns, which is going to be a very few from, of the entire pool of entrepreneurs. There are a lot of companies that are going to be bootstrap success stories. There's going to be companies that are going to bootstrap to exit. And there's a class of investors, micro VCs, small funds, who have come to the conclusion that they can make money in the bootstrap to exit, capital efficient startup to early exit mode as well. And that is a new trend. For a long time, VCs all wanted to chase what has come to be known as unicorns. In the past, we used to see VCs look for $1 billion TAM and very fast growth rate, going from 0 to 100 million in 5 to 7 years. Those were the characteristics. Those are still the characteristics of the ones that are going to look for the unicorn companies. But there is another class of VCs who are looking at the opportunity to make money with a shorter time span and quicker exit and small amounts of capital. So that's why I ask everybody, what is your fund size and what is your philosophy? What are you looking for? What is the fund thesis? So if you want to take this question without disclosing fund size, that's fine too.
Well, I think it's a philosophy question per se. That's an excellent question, actually. And so you might just find me talking both ways. And so, let's take this a look at what I mean by that is, in our reason, let me counter both. So we do ask our founders, like, how do you get to that 100 million in revenue, right? Like, that is an important question for us to ask. Why is that? Because when we're helping our founders think about, the next round of funding from the typical Tendo firms, it is not possible to get that kind of funding until your company looks like that package product that can get to 100 million in revenue fast in the amount of time we talk about, right? So that's one way to look at it. The flip of that is, though, for us, we have had few exits. We've had Similarity get acquired by PayPal. We've had recently Passage AI get acquired by ServiceNow. And those were in the range, without disclosing, because, again, the founders don't want us to talk about this in numbers, but in the range of, like, very, like, average, we talk about like 10x, right? And so if that is the case, for a small fund, that's, 3 to 10x is a great number. So math really works out, to your point. For us, because we've returned a good portion of our first fund based on that. So we are, the reason we don't talk about our fund size is because of, like, LP reasons, nothing else. But we are a smaller fund, like, a Schmidt style fund, engineering capital style fund, where those kinds of numbers really matter to us, and those smaller exits are great for us in terms of returning the capital. But it's but the reason I say it's a philosophy question is often when you start a company and you're thinking about just, I think it was going to be like a $15 million exit. It's never aspirational enough. And that could be like your ceiling in some ways. And so if you think about like 100 million, maybe you can, start building the company to at least have a 50 million kind of exit, which I feel is often what happens. You build a big picture company, and then you figure out the market is too crowded or something like that, and then you say, if I raise another round of funding, will I price myself out of a acquisition conversation? And that is when the acquisition happens, which is, great. We definitely want to support our founders that go that route. And I believe that if you, as a founder, feel that you can't take the company further, then you should definitely exit, right? That is how we think about exits. But we're not, just sitting out here saying, let's just go invest in companies that are just going to be 10, 15 million outcome right now.
Yeah. And right. So it is a philosophy question. If you are essentially like Ashmeet, for instance, is a good example. He is not looking for the smaller exits. He is looking to work as a feeder into the Sequoias and the larger funds, the traditional venture capital funds, and he's doing traditional venture capital, but he's doing it at the early stages. I think that's what you're doing as well. If an exit happens and it needs to happen at a smaller price, quicker, that's fine, but that's not what you're aiming for. There are firms right now that are aiming for the capital efficient because, the much larger number of exits happen at the sub 50 million range. And it's a lot easier, a lot faster to do those exits from a deal point of view. Corp Dev is much more equipped to do smaller exits than these huge, 500 million, 300 million, $1 billion exits. So there are investors who are looking at that opportunity and specifically strategizing and controlling the amount of money that goes into a company to be able to not price themselves out of the valuation range. So I got it. That was my question: is what is your philosophy and where are you going? So another question is on geography. You are based in New York?
I'm based in San Francisco.
You're based in San Francisco, okay. So what is your geography?
For what I invest in, you mean?
Yeah. Where do deals need to be located for you to be interested in investing in them?
Agnostic. We have companies across, I would say, we're investing across the United States. So we have companies, in Philadelphia, Texas, San Diego, and a lot in Bay Area, obviously. Mm-hmm. But we also have a different, it's been a newer trend right now, but we've actually have over half of our portfolio companies have offices in, subsidiaries in like countries like India and Israel. Since we do a lot of deep tech like security, cloud infrastructure, a lot of these founders also have relationships back from those kind of countries where we're open to that model. Our belief is, again, you can build a tech team there, and then the other founders with more sales experience can be more co-located with where the customers are. So that, I guess, but there's still United States tie, which is pretty heavy for us. But anywhere in the United States is okay for us.
Okay, very good. Let's talk about some of your portfolio companies that are a good representative for the way you think about investment. So give us maybe a couple of examples and take us through the thought process of when you found them, when did you choose why did you choose to invest in them? What was special about them, and why are you excited about these companies?
I think I just talked about this before. Good example of us believing that there are a ton of microservices that have come up over the last, decade. And there is a lot of CIO spend happening in actually sort of company spend actually happening in these microservices. When I say microservices, it could be things like Salesforce to Marketo to HubSpot, like, just Trello, like people just, employ to find things on their credit card, or, or different business units buying different, seats for their own or on these services. But what happens at the end is the CIO sees a lot of spend, but and unused seats for the spend, and that's what Productive helps you, think about how to manage that SaaS spend in your organization. So that's a good example of the and representative kind of company that we have invested in. Another one is a company called ERDB, Data Time Series database company. We believe that databases today need to evolve to handle the kind of data that is high cardinality, high fidelity data that is coming in today through IT products or fintech services. So this company, the founder, Todd Person, was a founder of another company, the database company in the category called Uniflux Database. And so we offered first check into his new company, solving problems in this category, but with a different go-to-market. I can keep going. I've had 42 companies. Where would you like me to stop?
Whatever, just to get a flavor for what you like to invest in. So any of the workflow microservices that hinge on data are attractive to you, is what you're saying, I think, and then
we have
any of the horizontal services as well that are hinging on data. So whether it's security hinging on data or DevOps hinging on data, all of those are fine for you.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.